So I was thinking about the games that I played the most this year. They're very different games, but something occurred to me the other day. There's a commonality between them. This year, a lot of my favorite games reminded me of a lot of my favorite games from years ago. So what's going on? Why do these brand new games in 2024 remind me of some of my favorite games from past generations? Let's dive into it. Hey, if you're new here, I'm Justin. I'm really excited to talk about my favorite games of 2024, but what are yours? Leave them in the comments below. Let's kick things off with Stellar Blade.
Let's take a closer look.
Stellar Blade, I've talked about it a lot. Obviously one of my favorite games of the year. It's got great combat, the level design I think is really good in most cases. The music is phenomenal. I mean, some of the best music I've heard in a game in a long time. But I think the thing that keeps bringing me back to it is it feels like a PlayStation 2 game. It's got this intense kind of combo-driven combat. So you pair that with a more linear level design, and you've got something that really reminds me of, I don't know, Devil May Cry, the early God of War games.
Eve, look up!
Now, it's not that God of War has totally gone away, it's just, it's gone a little bit a different direction. Stellar Blade was like a reimagining of what those kinds of PS2 games might look like if they were made today. And it's something that you don't see a whole lot now, a brand new IP that managed to break through somehow. Well, I say somehow. I think the character model had a lot to do with it. Anyway, the enemies are really fun to fight. I think the level design is really fun to explore. So you've got, a handful of these super linear levels and then another couple of big open zones. So you really get the best of both worlds. In 2024, when a lot of action games give you these huge open worlds, it's kind of refreshing to have something that's a little more linear. Stellar Blade gives you these really tight, constructed experiences that are great for set pieces and just let you get through the game quickly. It's all the hack and slash you love from the PS2, added with some maybe Souls, like very Souls-light gameplay. All right, let's take a hard left turn. Next up, NCAA Football 25.
First down, looking to throw the football.
This was EA's attempt to bring college football back to consoles after, what, over a decade? And it's now the best-selling American football game of all time. Now, if you wanted to play a college football game before this one came out this year, you'd have to go back to NCAA 14? Is that right? Let me check that out. Yeah, NCAA Football 14. And right before this game came out, College Football 14, those prices were like $100 for a physical copy of that game. So you could do that, or you could go online, emulate the game, download a few patches, have an updated roster, maybe some updated textures, and sort of cobble together a new college football experience. But like College Football 25 is a huge step forward.
On second and goal, they hand it to him again.
It is a lot of what you love from the earlier NCAA games, but EA's taken a lot of the lessons they learned from Madden games, over the past 10, 15 years and applied it to this. And the realism is really something else. When you go into a new stadium and you can see all the celebrations that happen before the games that are specific to that university, or the way that the stadiums are constructed, it's all really, really awesome. Beyond the minute-to-minute gameplay of the actual game, there's also a lot you can do in terms of recruiting and building your own team. And with the new online features, you can hop online and play with your friends in a way that I guess you could with the PS3, but it wasn't the same. It's so much easier now. Next up, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. Now this is obviously probably the biggest throwback game of all throwback games on this list. It is so nostalgic for me to play this game. So it's a new Budokai Tenkaichi. Tenkaichi? Am I saying that right? I think so. In 2024. The last game in the series, the last real game in the series was 3, and that was back in like the late 2000s? I think it was 2007. Now everybody has their favorite Tenkaichi game. Mine was the second one. Probably just because I've spent more time playing that one. I play with my friends all the time in that game, but 3 was also really good. You know, in all of these, in this entire franchise, the rosters have been huge, the animation has been really good, and it's just really fun to play through some of those storylines that you saw in the anime.
Goodbye, Kakarot.
Sparking Zero is a lot more of the same. It's just better. It's a modernized experience, the fighting mechanics are smoother, the character models look amazing, the graphics and art direction make it look like you're playing an episode of the anime. The game gets even better with its what-if stories. At different points in the game, you can decide if you want to play the story in the same way that the anime played out, or take an alternate route to see what would happen. It reminds me a little bit of Xenoverse. And obviously, if you're into online multiplayer, this game's got it for you. It's kind of weird to think that back in the PlayStation 2 days, I would sit beside my friends on the floor and we would spar in Tenkaichi 2 and 3, and now we could do it from wherever we are in the country. I'm really surprised they brought this back. You know, Dragon Ball games have gone a lot of different directions, and I've enjoyed a lot of them. Kakarot's the latest one. I've been playing through that again on my PC. Really like that game, but I'm surprised they went back to this old formula, but I'm glad they did. It's a real nostalgic hit, and I think it introduced people who weren't around for those earlier games to this kind of big arena fighter for Dragon Ball Z. All right, let's shift gears and talk about The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. This game is like a love letter to people who spent hours and hours and hours on Zelda dungeons on their Game Boy. Now, I don't think this game is perfect. In fact, I've got some big complaints about this game, but I think it is doing something really interesting. You know, it's taking that Link's Awakening formula, that art style, and it's giving us something totally new. Zelda is the protagonist, you replace Link's sword fighting with her magic. It's just kind of an interesting idea. I'm surprised Nintendo made it, honestly. The puzzles are interesting, some can be challenging, but if you're not into puzzles, you may not like this game that much. Personally, I prefer more of the action Zelda games and less of the puzzle games. So when it came to like Oracle of Seasons versus Oracle of Ages, I can't remember which one was which, but I liked the more action-based one and less of the puzzle one. I think Oracle of Ages was the puzzle one. So what really sets this one apart is it's totally new. You know, a new protagonist, new way to interact with the world, but it's so familiar, you know? It's this top-down Zelda game that is taking what worked with Link's Awakening, the remake, and doing something totally different with it. For me, I think the most powerful thing about Echoes of Wisdom is that after games like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, Nintendo is still willing to go back and do this kind of Zelda game, this dungeon-based, puzzle-based Zelda game. I am all for Link's next big 3D adventure, although Tears of the Kingdom was a little too much like Breath of the Wild to me, but I'm all for it. But I really like the idea of having a handheld Zelda game, a new handheld Zelda game. I'm hoping though it plays a little bit better on the Switch too. When I'm in the overworld, this game really struggles for me. All right, one more game here, and it's the game of the year, Astro Bot. This is Sony's latest jump back to a big mascot character. You know, if you remember the old days of PlayStation with Spyro and Crash Bandicoot, it's hard to imagine that they let those go, you know? Like those were the big mascot figures for PlayStation, and I don't think Sony even owns either one of them anymore, right? Is that right? Those characters used to be synonymous with PlayStation. They were in the commercials. You remember the one of Crash outside of the Nintendo headquarters with a bullhorn? Like that was PlayStation in the 90s. Just really quick, can you imagine like an analogous situation? Like Nintendo doing that with Mario? Like no way, no way. These game companies need a big mascot character. And I feel like PlayStation has finally understood that with Astro. Every single level of this game feels like a theme park ride. They took everything that they could learn from previous 3D platformers. I'm thinking specifically about Mario, obviously, and took the best of it and put it into this game. Every level feels fresh. There are all these different gimmicks that you can use to help combat or help exploration. It feels great. The only thing I don't like about it is how heavy-handed the marketing is. Like, it feels like they made Astro Bot to be a commercial for other Sony franchises when it really should just be its own thing. It can stand on its own while still being a nod to the PlayStation brand. It's a little much for me that the entire spaceship is a PS5. I mean, okay, whatever, just make it a normal spaceship. It doesn't have to be this super overt commercial for the PlayStation. It's gonna sell PlayStations anyway. This is one of those must-play games. But with all that said, Astro Bot really is a testament to Sony's history in the gaming space. And it's all wrapped up in this nice little package that's perfect for people who play a lot of games, but also perfect for kids who are just getting started with games. It's really fun for the whole family. These were a handful of some of my favorite games from this year, and they all had that retro or throwback feel to them. But what about you? What games did you really love this year? I probably could have also talked about like some of the remakes, like Silent Hill 2. Like, obviously that's a throwback game. There's so many more I'm missing. Like, I know there was a lot that could have been added to this list, but I didn't play them enough or whatever. But let me know in the comments down below if you can think of one. So 2024 wasn't just about looking forward, it was also looking back. Taking these things that we loved from these older games from previous generations and reimagining them for people playing games today. I'm really happy to see some of these older type games coming back. There was a reason they were so good before, you know, and they can still be that good today. But hey, before you leave, let me know what your 2024 Game of the Year was in the comments below. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing.